All right, guys, so today we are moving on to a new type of problem. So far, everything that we have factored with the x method has started with an x squared. And if it didn't start with an x squared, we had a few problems that were like 8x squared plus 16x minus 32. There was something in front of the x squared that could be factored out of everything, right? Well, what happens today is, what do you do when you cannot get rid of the number in front of the x squared? So down here in the notes, I'm going to skip right down here to step 2, and I'm looking at this example right here. It wants me to factor 6x squared minus 5x minus 4. With what you've learned so far, the problem is that 6 in front. And if I try to factor a 6 out, I really can't, because 6 doesn't go into negative 5, 6 doesn't go into 4. So there's no way to get rid of that 6. It's stuck there. So what we're going to do today is use the x method a little bit differently in order to still solve this problem. So what you do, and the steps are right here. You can read through them. I'm just going to go through them with this example problem once, and then we'll give you some more examples down below, okay? So up above it says step 1. This first big step is probably one of the most important. The first thing that you need to try and do is to factor out the greatest common factor. You have to look to see if there is something that you can factor out. In our example, 6x squared minus 5x minus 4, nothing goes into 6, negative 5, and 4. So there's nothing for me to factor out. So then I move on to step 2. And we are still going to use the x method. The problem is that 6 in front. And the way that I solve that is I take that 6 in front and I multiply it by the very last number, that negative 4. So instead of putting a negative 4 on top, if you notice in this problem, they put a negative 24 on top because they took the 6 out in the front and multiplied it by the negative 4. Other than that, the next couple steps are normal. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 24 and add up to be negative 5. So I can start making my list. I can use my calculator. I can do whatever I need to do to figure out what those two numbers are. Well, those two numbers happen to be, if I skip over here, those two numbers are 3 and negative 8, right? 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. Now, here's where it changes, because before you would have just written x plus 3 and x minus 8. That's how we would have done this in the past. But the problem is we kind of cheated. We broke some rules. That 24 on top, it wasn't a 24. It actually started out as a 4. And remember, we multiplied 6 times negative 4. Well, because I broke that rule, now I have to undo it. I'm not supposed to do that, so I have to undo what I did. So I have to take that 3 and divide it by 6. And I have to take that negative 8 and divide it by 6, which is what you'll see right here in the next step. They have a 3 over 6 and a negative 8 over 6. Now, before I move on, I want to simplify. 3 over 6 simplifies to be 1/2. So you'll see right here I've got 1/2. And negative 8 over 6, a 2 goes into both of those, so I end up with negative 4/3. And that's as much as it simplifies. So now that those are simplified as much as they can, I can actually write my answer. I can write my 2 parentheses. The way that I do it, whatever number's on the bottom of the fraction goes to the front of the x, and whatever number's on top, that just becomes our regular number inside with the x. So I would have 2x plus 4. On the other one, I would put a 3 in front of the x, and it would be a 3x minus 4. So you're using the main method is still the same. You're still looking for two numbers that multiply. There's just a couple little extra pieces that you have to do along the way. So let's try this. I know that was a lot in one problem. So let me show you 6 more examples, work through them with me, and by the end, hopefully you've got a better hang of this. So on number 1, I've got a 2 out in front. When I look at the 2 and x and the negative 15, there is nothing I can factor out. So there's no greatest common factor to get rid of. So I'm going to take that 2, and I'm going to multiply it by negative 15, and that gives me negative 30. That gives me my top number. And the bottom is still going to be my x number right there, which is a 1. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add up to 1. I can start making my list. I can do 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. Now, I know they multiply to a negative, and since they add up to a positive, the negative is going to be the little number. So I think those are my answers right there, negative 5 and 6. So I'm going to put a negative 5 and a 6. But I cheated. At the beginning, I multiplied by 2 to get that negative 30. I wasn't supposed to do that, so I have to divide both of my answers by 2. And the one on the left, I'm just making a little bit more room here. The one on the left, negative 5 over 2, that doesn't simplify. But 6 over 2, that simplifies to become 3. So my parentheses, one of them's nice and easy. It's just x plus 3. And then my one from the left, I take the negative, that 2 on the bottom, not negative 2, sorry. I take the 2 and put it in front of the x, and then I have a negative 5 on top, goes after the x. So x plus 3 times 2x minus 5. I know, still a little bit confusing, so let's keep going. Number 3, I've got a 5 in front. I can't divide anything else. 5 or nothing goes into 5, 4, and 1. So I'm going to take my 5 and I'm going to multiply it by negative 1, and I get negative 5 on top, and I get a 4 on the bottom. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 5 and add up to be 4. And let's do positive 5 and negative 1, right? Those multiply to negative 5, add up to 4. But I cheated. I multiplied by 5 right here. I'm not supposed to do that, so I have to divide by 5 on both sides. On the left, that simplifies and just becomes a 1. On the right, that doesn't get reduced at all. Negative 1 over 5 stays negative 1 over 5. So my parentheses become x plus 1. That's from right here. And then my right-hand side, the 5 on the bottom goes to the front, and the negative 1 comes after the x. So x plus 1 times 5x minus 1. All right, let's try number 5. It looks like our number is going to get quite a bit bigger now. 9x squared minus 30 plus 16. So I've got this 9 in front. I don't think nothing goes into 9, 30, and 16. I thought 3 might for a minute, but 3 doesn't go into 16. So I have to take 9 and multiply it by 16, and that gives me 144 on top and negative 30 on the bottom. And then you have to start making your list. We got to figure out what numbers work. So you can do 1 and 144. You can do 2 and 72. You can do 3 and 46? 48? 3 and 48. You keep going down the list, and eventually, what one's going to work? Let's see. We're still too far apart. How about 6 and 24? I think 6 and 24 will work because they can both be negatives because they add up to negative 30. So negative 6, negative 24. Now, I think that's where some of you are going to struggle on this one. Because the numbers are bigger, you have to find more numbers that divide into 144. And if you're struggling with that, just use Desmos. Just go to Desmos like we have in the past. Do 144 divided by, do 144 and divide it by, you can either do it divided by x and check all of the different possibilities, or you can just start trying numbers. 144 divided by 4, see what you get. 144 divided by 6. Oh my gosh, I can't type. 144 divided, oh my heck. 144 divided by 6. There we go, 24. Just start guessing numbers if you need to. Put them in your calculator, put them in Desmos till you find the match that works, all right? Now, remember, we cheated. We multiplied by 9, so now I have to divide by 9. And my left-hand side is going to become negative 2/3. If you're not good at simplifying fractions, that's something else the calculator can help you with. But it is something you're going to need to practice for sure. On the right, let's see, 3 goes into both of those, so I get negative 8/3. So these are the two numbers that I want to use in my parentheses. So on the left, the 3 comes out in front, and the negative 2 goes after the x. From the right, the 3 goes out in front, and the negative 8 comes after the x. So my answer would be 3x minus 2, 3x minus 8. Okay, hopefully you're starting to get the hang of it. Again, I know the numbers are bigger. It's going to be harder to find the numbers sometimes. Other than that, I think the math is still pretty simple to get through this. It's all things that it's none of it's new math. It's just using it in different ways. So number 2, I guess we kind of went down and skipped, right? So number 2, we've got a 4 in front. 4, nothing goes into 4, 17, and 42. So I'm going to take 4 and multiply it by negative 1 or negative 42, and that gives me negative 168 on top and negative 17 on bottom. So I know one of these is going to be a positive, one of them is going to be a negative. And the negative is going to be the bigger number because they add up to be a negative 17. So if I just start dividing stuff, if I just open my calculator, not that calculator, and I just start dividing 168. So let's do 168 divided by 4. See what we get. 42. I only want my numbers to be 17 apart, so that's not close enough. So 168, you just keep plugging numbers in. Let's double that. Let's divide it by 8, and I get 21. Those are 13 apart, so those are a little bit too close. Let's do 168 divided by, I think 7 will work. 7 and 24. I think that's our magic number. So we've got 7 and a 24. The 7 is going to be the positive. The 24 is going to be the negative because it's bigger. And we cheated. We multiplied by 4. So now I have to divide that 4 away since I cheated. 7 over 4, this left side right here doesn't simplify. But the right side, that simplifies to be negative 6. So my parentheses, I end up with an x minus 6 from over here. And my 4 moves to the front, x, and the plus 7 goes after the x. All right, let's keep going. Number 4, I've got a 4 in front. Nothing goes into 4, 37, and 40. So I'm going to take 4, multiply it by 40, and get 160. I want numbers that add up to 37. So we're going to do 5 and 32. 5 and 32 add up to 37, and they multiply to be 160. But I cheated. I multiplied by 4, so I have to undo that. I have to divide by 4. And over here, I think that's as simplified as it gets. But on this side, I end up with an 8. So my answer becomes x plus 8 and 4x plus 5. Okay, number 6. I've got an 8 out in front. Now this one, I'm definitely going to be able to factor something out. A 2 goes into everything. 8 does not go into everything. And 4 does not go into everything. So let's just factor out a 2. And that leaves me with 4x squared. I'm dividing everything by 2 plus 24x plus 11. That seems a little bit more manageable. So I'm going to take, that 2 is just going to kind of hang out in front for a while. And now that 4 is going to multiply by the 11, and I get 44 on top. And I get 24 on the bottom. So I need 2 things that are going to multiply to be 44 and add up to be 24. So that's going to be, what are we going to get? 2 and 22. Those add up to 24. And they multiply to 44. Yeah. So now, because I multiplied by 4 right here, I've got to undo that. So I'm going to divide by 4. And on the left-hand side, I'm kind of getting crammed here. That turns into 1/2. And on the right-hand side, 22 divided by 4 is just 11 over 2. and that's going to be my other number. So my answer is going to be 2x plus 1. That's from the left. And 2x plus 11. That's from the right. But don't forget this 2 that we factored out at the very beginning. That goes in the very, very front. You're going to have a 2 in the front. So 2 times 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 11. Definitely harder than just the ones with x squared. Extra bigger numbers to deal with and 1 or 2 extra little steps. But the x method still works.